Hello everyone! Just a quick note before we start, if you see me looking off to the side, I'm looking at my phone which has my notes on it, just because I want to make sure I cover everything that I had in mind for this topic, which I am excited about, even though it's not a very positive topic. But what makes me excited about it is that I do believe that this can help people, because we don't even realize that we do these things to ourselves. And I do believe that once you're aware of them, you can take steps towards change. And once you do that, you'll have a more positive language experience, or experience in language learning in general. Self-sabotage is this week's topic, and I'm sure it's a word you've heard somewhere before, somewhere out there on the internet. But what is that? Basically, what that is any kind of behavior or thing that you do that interferes with or undermines your goals. And this is definitely applicable to language learning, because we can get in our own way. I think we talk a lot about how we might deal with a language partner who maybe isn't cooperating as we had hoped, or maybe a bad experience with a teacher or a class that we took. But what about what we actually do to ourselves? There are several ways we can self-sabotage. Of course, there are the obvious ones, such as procrastination, putting off learning that language until circumstances are right. And the thing is, if you're waiting for a perfect circumstance, then that's never going to come, and you are going to waste time waiting when you could have been making progress in your journey. Now, of course, aside from the obvious ones like procrastination, there's also these different topics such as victim mentality. That basically means that you're not taking control of the things that are within your control in your language journey. Of course, there are things that are out of our control. We can't control how our language exchange partner speaks to us, or how the language exchange necessarily goes. If they choose to mostly speak in their target language and don't give you an equal amount or an acceptable amount of time to practice your target language with them, you can't control that. I mean, what you can do is you can tell them that you would like to speak in your target language more, but you can't control what they do once you tell them that. However, there are things that you can be in control of, such as in that situation, telling your language exchange partner, hey, I would like to speak in my target language a little bit more. The same thing goes for taking a class. Maybe the class isn't cracked up to be what you thought it would be, and you're not enjoying it so much. But what can you do outside of class to keep the joy in your language routine? With a victim mentality, you believe that it's everybody else's fault and that you're the one being wronged. And while I don't want to dismiss the fact that there are ways that you can be wronged in your language journey, there are steps that you can take to make some change within your own routine and make it a little bit more fun again. The next point is catastrophizing. I did make a video on that, as well as victim mentality, and I will link those in the description box as well as within this video, if you would like to reference that, because I'll go more in depth in the video than in this video. But basically what that means, catastrophizing, is when you automatically think the worst case scenario is going to happen, and that not if it does, but when it does, it is going to be a catastrophe. It is going to be the worst thing ever. And with that, it can be very difficult, because we all have worries. It's natural. We all get nervous. We all have insecurities. But when you let that take over your language journey, it can really affect what you do. It can affect your actions. It can even result in a self-fulfilling prophecy. I say can because it may not always result in that, but it sure can, because if, for instance, there is a test coming up and you are intimidated because you don't know the material very well, then you think, why should I even bother studying? Because it's not worth it. I'm going to fail. What's the point? Quick note here, self-sabotage can be conscious or it could be subconscious. It could be something you are completely aware of and you are deliberately doing this to yourself. On the other hand, it could be something you don't realize that you're doing. Say that you don't say to yourself, I'm not going to study because what's the point? Just pretend that you have the thought and then it causes you to not study. That is the action that stems from that thought. And therefore, you don't study and then you don't do well on the test. I do want to give a quick definition from Britannica.com on self-fulfilling prophecy because just like self-sabotage, you've probably heard self-fulfilling prophecy somewhere, but it's nice to have an actual definition to go by. And that is the process through which an originally false expectation leads to its own confirmation. In other words, this thing that you're afraid of is not guaranteed to happen, but you truly believe that it is, and because that thought is so powerful and you believe it, actions that follow it can end up resulting in the failure or whatever it is that you're fearing. And because of that, it's important to be very aware of our thoughts and if we're catastrophizing or not. And then finally, the last point that I'd like to bring up is the point of not being self-aware. This can be harmful in your language journey because if you're not self-aware, then you don't know when change needs to happen. And there are many areas in which it's important to be aware. This can be your thoughts and knowing yourself as a language learner. How do you view yourself as a language learner? Or do you know what kinds of methods work for you? Do you know what your learning style is? If you don't know that, you may be just throwing things at the wall until they stick and not finding any success in that, which can lead to discouragement. Now, if you don't know your own thoughts that you're having and how you perceive yourself as a language learner or your thoughts about language learning in general, then that can also be harmful because if you're saying negative things about yourself all the time and it's just this constant negative input, that can affect your actions as well. Another way is not knowing when it's time to change up your routine. Say you've been using the same resources for quite some time and you've become familiar with them to the point that you're not making any progress while using that resource. Maybe it's time to switch it up, but if you don't realize that and you're just sitting there wondering why you're not making any progress, this could also be discouraging because you're not getting that reward or that feeling of that you're actually making progress. And then lastly, knowing which activities bring you joy and which ones make you dread language learning. This is important to know because if you're doing things that you don't enjoy and only doing those things and not including any activities that you enjoy in your language routine, then you're not going to have fun and you can only rely on willpower so much to keep you studying a language. But eventually, you're going to burn out, you're going to be tired, you're not going to want to do this anymore, you're going to lose enthusiasm for that language. It's important to know what fills you up and to include that within your language routine. That's what I've got for you this week. I hope this was helpful, and if you know somebody who may be struggling with these things, please send them this video because it can help them. And if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at PassionforLang. We can discuss this topic a bit more, and we can also discuss it in the comments as well. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.